Hello, this is Dale Matthews, and welcome to Inside News. I'm here by video, and Mike's a little embarrassed about his appearance tonight, so he's appearing by telephone.
Yes.
Well, I thought what we'd do tonight is Mike's been having some bandwidth issues. And so I thought what we might do tonight is look a little bit at Facebook and about the things that we post there. I'll tell you, when we first started on this, Mike knew a whole lot about Facebook, and I knew beans. I mean, I knew the name of it, and I wasn't registered in any way. And I thought, well, the people that go on Facebook, they have a tendency to be kind of ouchy, and I really wasn't interested in going someplace where people were calling each other names a lot. I get enough of that at county commissioners meetings, especially from Keith Heck. But now I found that when we post our videos there also, that it just about doubles the amount of viewers that we get. And something I think is kind of strange, Mike, is that many times people will be listed like, say, 47 views or 83 views on Facebook, and on our listing here for the website, it'll say 70. And I'm still a little confused by why there would be so many on one of the Facebook pages, and it doesn't look as if there's as many on the website.
Yeah, and that comes down to, and we've experienced this before, as to how Facebook registers views of a given post. There's a few pages that you can go to that will show you how many views a particular post or how many people have seen it. And the way that they register that is that if somebody goes to Josephine County Politics, I believe regardless whether they actually scroll across that post, it counts as a view on that post, which is kind of
That's goofy. Weird, yeah.
Anyway, and so so somebody could have viewed the post without actually clicking on the video, which would account for a disparity between the number of views on Facebook and YouTube. So,
well, the pluses and minuses for me personally, and for those of you who were thinking, well, maybe I'll try it out. Josephine County Politics is a closed group. And so what it means is you just click on it and say, I'd like to join. And then the moderators, Mike is one of the moderators, and Vivian Kirkpatrick Pilger is another, and they approve you to come in. But what they can do is, if somebody's going on there and calling everybody names and saying you're full of this and full of that, and like Larry Graves does, F you and F this, then they talk with them and they say, look, that's not appropriate. If the person says, well, F you too, then they kind of kindly show them the door.
That's right. Yeah, and listen, we are very tolerant. Harry Mackin's membership in that group is proof of that.
Yeah, we'll hear a little bit from Harry Mackin's post, because I'm going to actually read some of the posts tonight, and so that you can hear what people are generally saying and how they're treated. And there are several websites. I like Josephine County Politics because it's about Josephine County politics for the most part. They've relaxed the rules a little bit, and every once in a while you see something about the president in there. But it is a place where one can go and talk seriously about Josephine County politics and some about Grants Pass City politics. One of my least favorite is Cave Junction, Illinois Valley, where there are people that are referred to as trolls. And troll is a person that kind of waits under the bridge, and as you're passing, and every time you pass, they jump up and they grab you and they give you trouble and they beat you over the head. And at that one in particular, there are several people who, well, for example, one of the people, I posted something about marijuana rules and how they apply to the southern part of the state. And there was an influential guy that came in there and said, this has got nothing to do with the Illinois Valley. Hello, it has to do with marijuana rules and the southern part of the state. Well, he actually got in touch with the moderator of that site and got a couple other friends to go in and insist that it had absolutely nothing to do with the Illinois Valley. Yes, it did. So... And the moderator,
listen,
took the post down. It was weird.
Some people want to regulate their page in such a way that they, it only has the stuff on it from people they like.
Yeah.
And
well, they have the right to do so. They have the right to do that. It's just I don't really like that a lot, but of course they can.
Yeah, and what it is. In the case of this particular site, it's a worldview issue. I see politics through this colored glass here, and you don't. So, I'm going to question everything you say. And listen, the fact that you're still a member there is amazing, because I'll tell you, I've been dispatched from a number of these Facebook pages. Just summarily, just boom, done.
Yeah, and
I didn't even know it. You try to go back to the page, and the page doesn't seem to exist on the internet.
It's not always like that, and I would suggest that if you want to take a small step, that you try Josephine County politics, because it's obvious, the fact that you're watching this, that you are a little bit interested in Josephine County politics, and so that's a place where you can go.
I'll tell you, it's an interesting thing on Josephine County politics. There are a limited number of active participants. I believe that most of the people come in there, get their news, and get out because they don't want to show what side they're on, or, don't want to make a fool of themselves, or they don't want to, I'm speculating as to the reasoning, but most of the people who are members on that group are not active participants.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So I would suggest that to you as a small step. Come on in and see what's there. You'll find some people. Well, I think on this show you'll find most of the people there. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, Mike. He does all the time anyway. Most of the people there will probably agree with your point of view if you like this show, and there are going to be some people who don't, and that keeps it a little bit spicier. And then there are people who can talk both sides of the issues. Mike and I always can, but we've got strong feelings one way or another, and so there are folks who you'll find that there are a number of they kind of trade off like a tag team at an old-time wrestling match, one of those fake things. And they'll come in and they are big supporters of the county commissioners. Why, they're the best that's been invented in the history of mankind. And they come there just to poke holes in other people, and I think, and to be the face of Cheryl Walker and Keith Heck and Simon Hare, and try to stop the folks who were going gangbusters and saying there's something wrong with them. They represent another point of view. Okay. As long as they're not super offensive. Okay. Yeah. So I thought I might share with you some of the kind of numbers that we've seen on our website and what we think is happening. Our big numbers in the past have come from November election, and where we got, 3,000 views? It was
better part of it. It was essentially a little over 2,800 overnight.
Right, and that was in one night. And I mentioned this before on our show that and part of it had to do with the fact that the people at the Facebook site were also watching it or watching some parts that led up to it or whatever. It whetted their appetite.
Not only that, it was a very important election.
Right.
You had the sales tax,
and
clearly people were hanging on their edge of their seat waiting for results.
What was interesting to me, and you'll hear that I've said a couple of these things before, and for some of you it'll be brand new, and others that have, some problems in retention, it'll be the first time you've ever heard it. Hello, I'm Dale Matthews. One thing I think was very interesting is that people were watching it all the way through. They weren't just tuning in to be the first one to hear the election results. They watched the whole show, and it was like, what was it, an hour and a half, Mike?
Yeah, something like that. I'm muting in between here because I'm sitting outside and it's a little windy. And can you hear my wind chimes?
Yeah, but it doesn't bother me. It's a little musical accompaniment to the show.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay,
it's our theme song. Okay, all right. So I thought I would tell you a little bit about some of our numbers. What we think is happening. There are two ways to look at our outreach. You guys are involved in this, and you talk with your neighbors, right? Of course you do. Two ways to look at our numbers. One is simply by the numbers that are written down here that come in, and you can see them, and we're not kidding you and everything. I mean, we're not going to exaggerate what they are, because when you come onto our website, you can see them for yourself. The other thing is, it doesn't really matter as far as money comes, because some sites are extremely sensitive about their numbers because they wouldn't get advertising money, as much as they'd want. But we don't have any advertisers, and we don't have any sponsors. We also don't have anybody saying, I'm cutting you off at the knees because I don't like what you're saying.
Right.
But on the other side of it, I'll be going somewhere and I'll hear somebody mention words and phrases that we've used on a recent show, and they don't know who I am, and I've never seen them before, and they're getting that information from somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder, back fence conversations with neighbors, and the terminology gets passed around, and before you know it, everybody's saying tubular.
The little back room. Yeah, the little back room. And also, one of the other places where it really makes a big difference is we know that the county commissioners and some of the city councilors are watching, Grants Pass city councilors are watching our show, because we can see that they're responding to things that we've said on the show. And if you want to have a counter to the commissioner's protected time, where they can say anything they want about you, anything at all, and it wouldn't be so bad if they weren't occasionally just making stuff up. And you've seen the videos. We have our own time, and I guess it's protected, but we're much more responsive to our audience than they are. And so when they say something and they think, I can't respond to that, yes, we can. We do every night.
Right.
So,
exactly.
So we got that going for us. And what was it? The Dalai Lama, instead of giving me a tip, he said that when you are in your deathbed, you'll reach ultimate enlightenment. So I've got that going for me. Movie fans will know what I'm talking about. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up a web page in front of me here, and I'm going to try not to use the glasses that I don't need. And I'll tell you some of the things that have been happening just this month. Well, this month we started off with a story called Treasurer Eve Arce on how drug money is to be, quote, overlooked, and how, quote, it gets laundered by the county. County Treasurer Eve Arce said that drug money was that they'd have to overlook it, marijuana money coming in for the taxes, and that the county would be engaging in laundering of that money. Now, that got 72 views, 72 with 2 likes. Here is that video, and I hope that Mike will be able to hear it. Here we go.
It's a county road out there, so you could annex it as part of Lee Park. So
Simon, shut up, Simon. That's not what I wanted to play. So so I don't know why he gets involved in this stuff, and then it screws up everything. Simon,
he's hacking into our computers.
That's right. So here's the one with Treasurer Eve Arce sitting down with the county commissioners in the little back room.
But if you're taking money from a registered marijuana dispensary.
Oh my gosh, that's the wrong one again.
Annex it as part of the.
Oh,
Gee
still the
whiz,
wrong one.
Dale, get your act together here.
County Treasurer Eve Arce on how. Yeah, okay. I just accidentally pressed the wrong button, and it's not Simon's fault. It's mine.
How the heck can you say this cash is not from a federally violating agency? I mean, I see, where's the leeway for that?
The state's accepting it. That's basically what I have to base that on, is if the state can accept it, put it into their bank.
Mike, can you hear that?
It's tricky.
Okay, all right. Here's what I'm going to do. And you guys can put up with this. This isn't that awful. I'm going to make it louder. Won't that be nice?
Okay.
Okay, all right. Here we go. And I'll let Eve Arce start over again. Here we go, Eve. Go ahead and start over again. Feel free to start anytime you want, Eve. Okay.
But if you're taking money from a registered marijuana dispensary, how the heck can you say this cash is not from a federally violating agency? I mean, I see, where's the leeway for that?
The state's accepting it. That's basically what I have to base that on, is if the state can accept it and put it into their banks, I'm going to have to do the same thing. I think the bank accepted like $38 million they recently, the last few months. Yeah, and that's just it. I really don't think the banks are looking that closely at it. And also know that basically it's going to be commingled with everything else that we do. I mean, it's not going to be any more smelly than what I get in December, November for property taxes. Or yesterday, no, or last Friday. So that's just basically, it's going to have to be just overlooked, and it's going to go to the bank, and they're going to take it, and it's basically how it's laundered. It's basically how it gets laundered. Okay,
Yeah,
so
essentially the state has the luxury of looking the other way, because somehow they have made some distinction between the actual revenue from the sale of pot and the taxation on the same, which is really interesting when you think about it. I mean, essentially the state is laundering this money as well, and yeah, very, very odd. I wonder how they're ultimately going to work their way around that one.
Now, I posted this on June 1st on Josephine County Politics, and I said, click on See More above to read the transcript. What I did was I went through and I very carefully transcribed the whole thing every and I put this into the I've frozen it on a still of the video here, and I put this into the Daily Courier because Daily Courier is not going to write about this. I put it in as a letter to the editor, and Kevin Whittison of the Daily Courier refuses to run it as a letter to the editor. Now what he says is
Shocking.
The ostensible reason is that I included where you could go to look at the video. Well, we're a non-commercial operation. They are a commercial operation. And every time I put in a letter to the editor in the past several years, it's been with a link. And now suddenly the link is not okay because, well, they're not covering this story. So I said you could go find this. Now, Lori Johansson says, good catch, Dale Matthews. And I said, thank you. Somehow I don't think Sean Hall or Dan Mancuso will tell anybody about this. Then Mark Collier writes, so it's true. The dispensaries are taking their sales, tax revenue, for adult use sales to Salem. And Salem is doing whatever it's doing. The dispensaries are complying with state law. Sure, they are ahead of the process. They accept money from a state-regulated function and then are conflicted when trying to deposit those exact funds into a federal system. Not the fault of the payer, the dispensary. The industry has been for medicinal use of cannabis for almost 2 decades in Oregon. This is the state of Oregon's problem and battle to figure it out, correct?
Makes sense to me.
Right.
I think that Yeah, I mean it's ultimately it's the state's issue because they're the bulk of the tax money, and they're going to find a way around this thing. They're probably lobbying real hard, along with Washington and Colorado legislators, to get some sort of a workaround for this for the federal law on this, because I would think that the state would be wondering when the feds were going to lower the boom on them and say, well, let us see your books here.
Yes.
And you've received this many $1 billion in tax money in the last 10 years or whatever. I'm talking as though this could happen down the road at some point. Because they've only got about a year in now, and but that's going to end up being a whole lot of money. So I expect they'll figure something out.
Well, then Lori Johansson responded, if the federal government finds that pot grown in Oregon is finding its way, smuggled, into other illegal states and is causing problems there and adding to the welfare rolls, etc., then the feds may be compelled to exert control on it in Oregon. In some counties, it is regulated as a drug and only dispensed with a real prescription for only serious uses after the other drugs have failed. Here it is likely easier to get than antibiotics and for lesser reasons.
Right, but I mean, we're not even talking about medical even anymore. I suspect that the only reason why the medical rolls will stay bolstered is because I believe that there's some benefit to that in terms of cost breaks and things of that nature. But yeah, this is going to be interesting because the scenario that she mentioned there is virtually inevitable.
Yes.
That marijuana from here, I'm sure it's already all over the country and has been for years.
Yes. Well, now, maybe you folks who are watching this show, maybe you don't watch HBO. I don't know. But there's a show on HBO called Game of Thrones. A lot of people know about it. And there's a show every Monday, which is the next day after it debuts on Sunday, where for about half an hour, they talk about the show. Really? Yeah. And so if you are interested in movies, there are always places where you can go where people are talking about your favorite movie. Or in this case, this series. Well, this Josephine County Politics is somewhat similar to that. In the videos that you've been watching on our channel here, people are there talking about them and exchanging their ideas about it.
Yeah.
So Shane Christian says about this video where you're looking at this still, he says, geez, Dale, how the heck did you get this? I find it, wonderful. And I answered, well, apparently the Courier does not agree. See how they scramble to come up with reasons why they just cannot print it.
Well, I have to believe that this gal is probably wishing that she hadn't used the word launder in there. That's I'm just guessing.
Yeah, I think you're right. And then Shane Christian responds. You may recall, everybody, that Shane Christian did run for county commissioner, and one of the things he said that he was in favor of was marijuana. And he says, well, Dale, when I get a thorn of any kind, like most people, I remove it so it can heal. With the way you bring things to light, the thorn continues to poke and cause a great deal of uncomfortable feelings. Hats off to you. Well, okay.
All right.
I wasn't sure where he was going with that, but I was going to read it to you guys anyway. So he is a fan of the fact that we brought this to light, and but we have plenty of people who are not. They're not happy about that. But I'd say, well, I don't get a whole lot of grief from this Facebook site Josephine County politics. Okay, so here's another one, and this one's called, pardon me a second, and I will put myself back up here on this while I'm getting this ready. And this one's called, it doesn't make any difference at all to Mike because he doesn't see me at all. Okay, now this one's called Board Agrees It's Critical, in quotes, to use economic development funds to promote their leadership record. And this got a lot of responses. And here's the video.
The Oregon Revised Statutes, Chapter 461, 512, gives us some parameters under which we can use the lottery dollars. Most of this information and the verbiage I'm using is taken from the statute itself. So as you can see that the use of lottery dollars from the state to the counties, the state says that we have to put them in a dedicated fund, which means the dollars are locked up. They're not available for anything. In particular, it says that they may not be placed in the general fund of the county. So meaning that they have to be dedicated to furthering economic development. Click. So what does that mean? So specifically, the ORS says the funds can be used for creating new jobs and can be used for preventing the loss of existing jobs, including training and or retraining workers. And I want to point out the first little figure there is an airline pilot, not a sheriff. So just to say.
I think that what's been happening is that the counties are using it the way that they feel is most important for their economic welfare. So
That's exactly right.
right. So, and I think that's why there was a certain amount of discretion in it, and I think that's why the state hasn't really worried about it, because every county has different needs for their economic development. As far as us using it for a communications type program, I think that's absolutely critical because no one knows about us unless we tell them about it.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's so important for us to know who you are and all about you.
And it does help prevent the loss of their jobs, Mike.
Well, yeah, theoretically. You know what I thought? It was just very interesting because when it applies to something that they want to spend it for, hey, you know what? The economic development money is for whatever helps your economic development. But if you happen to want to use it for law enforcement, oh, no. That's against the law. We can't do that.
Yes, and this was a very popular, well, so to speak, video. It was watched by a lot of people, and here's what some of the people had to say about it. Randy Pollock says, instead of legacy, they should be more concerned with leg irons. Kathy Foster says, these people are counterproductive and stifling to our county. Let's get some winners in there this time, eh? Then Vivian Kirkpatrick Pilger says, well, the people voted, and so far you have Heck and DeYoung vying for one seat. That Heck didn't win it with over the 50% in the primary puts him in the runoff in November against DeYoung. Heck has an uncanny knack for incorrectly stating others' backgrounds. Then I'm going to skip forward a little bit. It's a tough call. There are several pictures of Heck appearing to be asleep at meetings, and Dan, to my knowledge, has not fallen asleep at any meeting. Now, Mark Seligman does comment at Josephine County Politics, and he says DeYoung has been for every tax, sales, and property strongly. That's what he said. Anti-cannabis, demeaning, represents the city. AD, I don't know what that is, and its regulation. Heck is not good, but DeYoung is far worse. Okay, and I answered yes. It's really hard to say which is worse: a sleeping Keith Heck or an awake Dan DeYoung.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So then I included a post from the North Valley Interactive Community Facebook site. And a person by the name of Joan Taylor Phillips said, there's nothing critical about this. Critical is our sheriff's department. And I said, I completely agree. And it's important for all of us to be aware of what the commissioners say. It appears, however, that the moderator of this site, and that'd be the North Valley Interactive Community site, feels the actual proof is just propaganda. And the moderator came in and says, please do not turn our North Valley Interactive Community page into your political soapbox. That was not the desired purpose of this page. Okay. So, and she also said, do you ever post anything positive about our county employees, Dale Matthews?
Yeah.
Well, you know, with the Courier saying positive things and KJO saying positive things. In fact, the last time the commissioners were on there, tell us all the positive things. Half of the show was him prompting them to please say positive things. And the other places and the commissioners patting themselves on the back. I don't think they need my help and saying positive things. Anyway, Rosie Minitree says, I appreciate knowing what the commissioners are up to, although it obviously doesn't seem to make that much difference to the community as a whole. But I also know people do not like to be bombarded by political posts. It's just a fact of life. Not everyone is interested, although they certainly should be, in politics on a daily basis. I don't see anything wrong with the site moderator not wanting you to constantly post commissioner news. Once in a while, yes, but you got to admit, you go over the top. She's talking about me. Since this is a political site here, perfectly fine. There is a time and place. Politics is your passion. It is not everybody's passion. And I responded, in the case of North Valley, certain viewpoints are welcome with open arms. Others are not. A happy, positive, glowing version of this story would be a winner. Of course, that's the moderator's choice. And Rosie says, I have been to meetings and been appalled. Apparently the community as a whole is not. That is my issue. Not against you, Dale, but you have to admit you've worn out your welcome. And why is that? I think it's just pure overexposure and an agenda that doesn't allow for an unbiased opinion. That being said, I still listen to you. You do give information and facts. I appreciate that very much. And I said, well, maybe I should be happy and positive. And she says, nah, have to be yourself. Maybe throw in a positive every once in a while. And I said, Rosie, did you see last night's show, June 4th? I think I could start every commentary like that, and it will still make no impact. So I remember that one. I don't know if you remember that one, Mike, but, you know, there I was talking about positive. Here's people in county government that are doing a great job.
Yeah.
You know, that happened also with but
see, the thing where you're not positive, and this is how they're looking at it, is that you're not saying things that they agree with.
Oh.
Yeah, that's, you know.
Well, I hadn't thought of it quite that way.
Yeah, well, that's kind of how it works.
Well, I don't like being negative about people all the time. You know, it may seem like the opposite, but I actually don't like being negative about people all the time. But when the Grants Pass City Council mentions, well, you know, you're out of control, I know what they mean. What they want is they want media that say good things about them all the time. And so we're the only ones who don't do that. We're the only ones who don't do that, and it sets some people on edge. So here is the one that I'd mentioned to you before, that where Simon kept speaking when he wasn't supposed to, and this one's called sorry, Simon, to keep people safe, that's in quotes, board bans parking on streets near county parks, knowing it poses other dangers.
It's a county road out there, so you could like annex it is part of Lee Park, so that your enforcement element was all around it. It isn't just limited to the boundaries of the park. It's not a safe situation because people are trying to escape a $4 fee.
Some of those people, it's interesting, have actually paid their fee. They
And
have
they still work
passes
out there?
because this year hasn't been too bad, but in past years, you can't see them when they're down there from the road, and so there was more break-ins. This year, the park patrol is working.
Yeah.
Many fewer break-ins in vehicles, far fewer vandalism. So it's working, but that was why I talked to one guy who was parked up there, and he parks there all the time, and I said, "You have a park pass?" He goes, because, my window got broken down.
It's safer up on the road, you think?
That was his reasoning.
So that was his reasoning.
Yeah.
Now, tomorrow they're going to close down another road to parking. So that'll make 3 of them near. And you heard what they said at the beginning of this, that the reason behind this was that when they said this, when they first floated this idea, the reason behind it is people don't want to pay that parking fee.
Right. Yeah. So they want to force them to pay. This is just it comes down to revenue. That's what this is.
Well, Kathy Foster says about this, well, what about those of us who can't walk far? Too bad, huh? And
yeah, that's right.
And Harry Mackin says, pay your park fee and drive in.
Yeah.
And I said, I think we should note Harry's point here. If you object to the fee and have a hard time walking, just pay the fee. Problem solved.
Right.
The perfect example of circular reasoning.
Yeah. Listen, Harry, if there is a local government apologist anywhere, he is it for sure.
Well, then it kind of got into a thing with Mark Seligman and Harry Mackin, where Mark Seligman is saying that Mackin is a tax and spend conservative who hates those that believe in less government overreach and is anti-cannabis. Gee, how'd that get in there, Mark? And still believes the Vietnam War was just.
I'm telling you, you know what? Mark just won't let that one go.
No.
It doesn't have anything to do with this thing here. Personally, you know what? If I don't want to get into an argument with somebody about the Vietnam War,
yes,
I will just avoid it by not bringing up the Vietnam War.
That's right. Yeah. Well, Vivian Kirkpatrick Pilger says, I didn't see him actually pass anything in this video segment, but Dale noted 2 other instances where they have done that. Yes, that's true. And if they would fund the sheriff's office like they should, since safety is supposedly their number 1 priority, there would be more patrols at the parks. But they would rather punish the public by charging park fees and restricting parking around the parks. She's got that park problem I had the other night. If they can't patrol those areas now, how will they enforce the restricted parking? Well, Mike and I both know how they're going to do that, and that they have decided that they're going to have their own special police force made of park employees who will actually leave the park. This is amazing to me. They're going to leave the park and walk up and down the streets outside of the park, handing out parking tickets to people at $225 a pop.
Yeah, go figure.
And now the county won't get that money. But what will happen is that if anybody gets that, then they're going to have to go through a big deal to solve that with the state. And the commissioners are then convinced that these folks will be more likely to pay the bills for parking into the park.
Mm-hmm.
It's a way to kind of force them into doing it.
Yes, exactly. Shocked at all? I'm not. These people, they're real pro revenue. They're not pro using it for law enforcement, but they're not at all surprised.
And what's amazing to me is that we've had a lot of discussions about, well, couldn't we take this amount here, $1 million, and that amount there, $400,000? Oh, that's nothing. Will basically say the commissioner, that's not going to solve anything. Really? And when we add them up, it ends up being a bit of money. Well, that they oppose because it won't get you anywhere. But they'll go for something where it's going to make them $1.95 extra from parking, or I'm exaggerating a little bit, and they'll go for that, even though it's going to be such a small amount of money.
Yeah, I don't really understand. I think what's happening is that they're not getting enough revenue coming into the parks to support the amount of employees that they have in the little fiefdom there. And so they want to have more so that they can expand, because everybody knows that government, has one purpose, and that's to grow the blob larger. And, that money would never find its way out of parks into any other part. They would just expand the parks department, or at least keep it afloat until they're flush with tax revenue again. Sometimes.
We saw this happen at the airports when Larry Graves was promoting the idea, along with Simon Hare, of manor development at the Illinois Valley Airport. Right after the commissioner said, yes, we're going to do this, the next day in the little back room, there was Larry Graves, and he was saying, I'm paraphrasing, desperate need to get two of my employees who've been sweeping up. You have to sweep up because you got to get that debris off of the runway. This is essential. I mean, they do it at aircraft carriers. This is not a small thing. Okay. But he says, I need them working on this project with manor development. They're going to be swamped when manor development comes in here. Well, he never explained what it was that these guys who were sweeping up were going to do to help manor development. But okay. And the commissioner said, yes, right away. Yes. They're now full-time employees. Then when the manor development project fell through right after that, why are these guys still full-time employees that are doing what? And what were they going to do in the first place?
Yeah, I got a pretty good idea about that. The more you talk to people in government, the more it seems that the measure of the size of their their prowess in government.
I get it.
Is the size of the budget that they control in their department. And so if you have several other employees, well, your budget just got larger, and now you're a bigger deal.
Yeah. Well, the former treasurer, John Harrelson, said that directly. And that he was asked, well, can you cut back on some of the employees you have? Because they were doing less. And he said, well, I could, but why should I? I mean, who else is cutting back on employees? I'm not going to cut back on the number of employees.
Yeah, and never mind propriety.
That's right. That's right. So this is just a brief introduction to who we are and what we do, well, as if you didn't know, but our presence on Facebook to say that, sure, there's going to be a little bit of disagreement, but that was pretty mild. And you are welcome to come. There's no money involved, and, the check is not in the mail. And I suggest that you think about Josephine County politics, just dipping your toe in if you're not already in Facebook. And you can read along, as Mike was saying. You don't have to comment. And if you really find any single person there really offensive, like me, okay, then what you can do is you can say, I don't want to see any of that person's posts anymore.
Right. And that's an easy thing to do. People that get irate about other people on Facebook don't understand Facebook. Facebook allows you to see what you want to see in Facebook. And, some people don't know about those controls or how to, make it work to their advantage, but that's certainly available to you. Yes, but this happens a lot. You'll notice that I think Facebook is valuable because it is kind of a sounding board. You do get feedback from people, and you see how what you're doing is being received. And it's interesting to see people talk about it. I wish more people would do it, frankly, because this is important stuff. We're all paying for this stuff. I think, everybody that owns a home here in Josephine County is, kicking a couple of grand into this deal. You would think, but they have written it off into the cost of doing business. And, it's just part of the expenses you pay to continue with your life, so you don't pay attention to where that money's going and how it's being spent and who's controlling it.
Well, so I'm mentioning this to you folks tonight because if you're serious about movies, you might get American Cinematographer magazine and read about how the movies are made, or you might see a television show about the making of insert your favorite movie title here. And you would probably really enjoy that, okay? And in this case, if you're seriously interested about things that are happening in this area, and you get kind of upset about the videos that we play, one thing that you could do to satisfy your hunger for information is don't stop watching the show, please. But what you could do, we make nothing from this, okay? But what you could do is you could go to a place like Josephine County Politics, and you could see what other people have to say about it. And if you find that especially offensive, you can just say, I don't want to see it from that person anymore, and then it will be a happy life. And then you can watch this show, and we'll tell you the kind of thing that we think that you'll be interested in. Mike?
Mm. True enough. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good synopsis there. Definitely do check out Facebook. But listen, there's probably a lot of people that watch this show that don't do Facebook.
That's what I'm mentioning.
Never been on Facebook,
right? That's why I'm saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really okay too. You don't want to force people into, because believe me, if some people are consumed by Facebook, Facebook is their life, and
yes.
I would try to avoid that. That's not a desirable thing to do. You keep your life, but understand politics, understand what's happening in the community here, and in order to fully understand that, you should sample from every well, including ours.
It's another source of information for you that we're telling you about. And thank you for joining us tonight. Tomorrow night we'll have more fascinating details, and tomorrow night we'll probably be talking about the city council and some of the things. I've tested this on a couple of people when I was around town today, and I told, oh, by the way, here's a story from the Grants Pass City Council. No, I said yes. No, I said yes. So you can watch our show and see the video. So that's probably what we're going to do tomorrow night, assuming that Mike has the adequate bandwidth. Get with the program here, Mike. Get adequate bandwidth.
Yeah, I got to tell you, today I spent a little bit of time not knowing that I was going to encounter this issue with the bandwidth. I was doing a lot of research on unorthodox solutions for acquiring broadband, and some really clever and ingenious solutions, and I'm thinking about going to some of these lengths here because the level of internet that I have here is unsatisfactory. It has been for a long time, and so I may be up in a tree with some baling wire and bubble gum here before you know it.
Well, thank you, everyone, for joining us. And contact Mike if you need bubble gum and some baling wire.
Or if you have ideas about what to go to. I've already tried outreach, and once I finally got a response out of them, like a month and a half later, the result was negative. So if anybody has any other sort of suggestions for acquiring buku bandwidth, give us a buzz.
Thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow night as usual.